Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial. And today we got another video about the ship's hull numbers. A couple of weeks ago we did a video back at the aft hull numbers where we talked about the weld marks that the Navy puts around them so that they can essentially color inside the lines when the ship has been blasted back to bare metal and then they have to repaint the numbers. And when we came up to the bow, we were specifically looking for smaller numbers because for the first part of the ship's career, she didn't have these huge hull numbers like we have today. In peacetime, especially during the interwar period, it was common for smaller American ships like destroyers to have the large hull numbers, the shaded style numbers, like the two-colored numbers, like we have today. And you see that on a ton of the flush deck destroyers and other destroyers interwar. But on the larger cruisers and battleships, they only have the smaller numbers. In wartime with the camouflage schemes, obviously you don't want the enemy to know what ships are operating in the area, so most of those big numbers get painted over, but most of the ships retain relatively small hull numbers, and then this can be used by other friendly ships in port to tell, well, I'm supposed to drive this Liberty boat over to New Jersey. Which one's New Jersey? You get close enough, you might be able to see the little white 62 at the bow. New Jersey is built with a haze gray camouflage scheme very similar to what you see here, but by the time she leaves the yard, she's painted in measure 21, overall navy blue color, the Black Dragon paint scheme. And then in 1945, she gets painted over with the measure 22, which is dark blue to the lowest part of the main deck, and then a straight line drawn, and haze gray everything above that. Finally, post-war, maybe in mid-46 or early 47, she gets painted again in the haze gray paint scheme. But in all of these early camouflage schemes, she retains a really small hull number. In fact, when she's reactivated during the Korean War, still in a haze gray paint scheme like she has today, she still has a small hull number. And it's sometime after her first Korean deployment, possibly 1952, but definitely by 1953, that she gets the large hull number that you see now. When we were at the bow, checking for those weld marks, we couldn't find any for the smaller hull numbers. It might not have been done, or it might have been ground smooth since then. Or it could have even been like the small lettering at the stern of the ship, which is a raised stainless steel letter that's relatively thin that's welded on and then painted a different color, in which case that would have been cut off in ground smooth also at that 1940 or 1952 or 53 time frame when she gets the bigger numbers. It does not appear that the ship had stern hull numbers at this time. She would have just had her name on the stern of the vessel. When she gets the large hull numbers like she has today painted on, they weld, and it's not the full outline of the numbers, but wherever there's an angle or various places, it's like every 6 or 8 inches, something like that, they put another weld mark to show where it is, and they have 2 lines of it so that the shadowed part has one line and the other part has another. Now, while we didn't find weld marks of the original hull numbers, we did find a set of weld marks for hull numbers that are no longer used. It seems like at some point during the ship's career, the numbers get raised. Check out this picture. You can see the weld marks where the numbers are painted, and you can see below that another set of mirrored weld marks. So it looks like the number was about the same size in roughly the same place fore and aft. It just moved from a couple feet lower up a couple of feet. And honestly, from pictures, blueprints, things like that, we can't tell when this change might have occurred. In theory, she gets this whole number of 52, 53. It could have happened in 68 when she's being reactivated. It could have happened in 82 when she's being reactivated. Those are my best guesses, but just can't tell for sure. It is such a minute change, it makes you question why they even changed the position at all, especially given that the 4 Iowa class battleships don't have their hull numbers all in the same place. So it's not like Oh, well, New Jersey was active during Vietnam. Hers are in a different place, and so they have to change it in the 80s. Doesn't really make any sense to me, but the weld marks, the way they do that to show you where you're going to paint these numbers does make great sense. Another fun fact for you, it doesn't just apply to hull numbers. It can also be on horizontal surfaces as well. The other week we were in San Diego visiting USS Midway, and her flight deck stripes have the exact same weld marks every so often that show where those stripes are supposed to be. It's interesting that her flight deck has that because our flight deck does not have anything like that showing where the lineup lines are or the T-balls or any of that stuff. So it's kind of surprising that with a metal flight deck that you could weld those tabs on. New Jersey doesn't have them. As of the first week of October 2024, we're coming up on the end of the hull painting project. We just finished reinstalling the mast and radar antenna and all the other stuff in the superstructure. Now the freeboard painting is ongoing. You can see the section up at the bow where the hull number is a little bit glossy. We use semi-gloss, but it's a little bit shinier. That's where the new paint is. Then aft of that, you can see that it's a little bit roughed up. That area's already been pressure washed, so that's going to be the next area to get painted. And there's one other area after this one that you can see, about one more barge length that needs to be painted, and that's actually going to be done by a man lift from the pier here where we're standing, not from the barge. So we are likely going to finish this up the second week in October. Again, in addition to the painting project, we've also been taking some steps to ensure that this paint is going to last an even longer time than the decade the last coat lasted. And we've went around and welded little gutters under any of the deck drains that are still actively dewatering the ship. So spaces where the decks are draining and it's causing rust to run down the side of the ship. It's now bumped out from the side of the ship and pushed down, which is something you see on active ships. And it's something that this ship had until she came through the Panama Canal in 2000 to transit to New Jersey State. So it's really a lost feature that we are re-adding onto the ship. While we've got the man lifts here and the painters, it just makes the most economical sense to do it now. So within a couple of weeks, the only major capital project going on will be the redecking project, which is still ongoing. And you can see in front of me here some of the teak wood that's been ripped up recently on the O2 level amidships, where we are currently working around the expansion joint. We've probably got something like another year of work on the superstructure. It's nowhere near as big as the main deck, but it's a lot of small areas that you have to cut in, and it's less straight shots like we've been able to do on the main deck. So that project is still ongoing, but otherwise, the ship is looking absolutely fantastic, and we intentionally stacked up these capital projects for 2025, the 250th anniversary of the founding of the Navy and the Marine Corps, which is going to be nationally celebrated here in the Camden, Philadelphia area, where both of those service branches were founded in 1775. And so when all the visitors come here for those celebrations and the Philadelphia Camden Fleet Week and all the other stuff going on along with that, Navy Marine Corps 250 celebrations, which there's a link to in the description below, the battleship's going to look fantastic. She'll have a clean bottom, she'll have a painted freeboard, much of the lower part of the superstructure is painted, she'll have new wood decks. Like, she is looking great. Probably better than she has since 1990 or 91 when she still had 1,600 sailors maintaining her. We've completed a lot of great projects this year. Which one was your favorite? Let us know in the comment section down below. Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State, also from a number of other businesses and private individuals like yourselves. It's your donations that have allowed us to do this work, preserving and restoring the ship, and we really appreciate it. There's a link in the description below if you'd like to donate to upcoming maintenance projects like painting the upper part of the superstructure and completing the wood decking. You can also support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing so more people find about the museum and the channel. Thanks for watching.